Good. Okay, welcome to Board of Selectmen's meeting of October 9th, 2018. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we're going to start with the STM warrant, and we're going to jump right down to, Bill, want to come on up? You're going to start.
Oh, boy, you guys are too good to me.
What article number is it now?
Good question. Well, we have a couple. We have 24. That's minor. Then we have 28, 29.
Do you have a copy of the?
No, I don't have a copy of the warrant, right? Thank you.
33.
So let's start with 24. Is that what you're going to start with?
Well,
or is that just
it's a planning article, but really it's just
okay.
Yeah.
for sort of in the.
So let's go to 28.
Yeah, actually, what we came up with is hot off the press. We got to put section numbers and stuff to it, but overall, the bylaw's been completed. The planning board will be holding a public hearing on November 13th. We will have available for the warrant, though, the language. So the warrant can go to print. Any amendments we can do on the floor that we run across during the public hearing. Basically, I don't want to go through the complete bylaw until it's gone through the public hearing itself, but basically what, after a lot of research, speaking to a lot of the planners and how most are handling it, there are several sections of the marijuana bylaw, as you guys are probably familiar with. Different type of establishments, cultivators, treatment centers, and we've addressed all those, and we've addressed in the fact that we're going to keep it in the general business district, which is the area on 140 to the right side, the side of the soccer field. That is classified as and there are some provisions within it that take it further. You know, 500 feet from a school or, you know, type of establishment with children. So what we're left with, in talking with the CCC, we're taking an approach of there can only be, as far as any retail, there can only be, you can only have to allow up to establishment of 20% of your carry-out liquor license. So, I mean, really, we're talking about maybe one. It really limits what can be done up on 140 because of the Bethany School and the soccer fields, and so there's a limitation there. There is some area in the back that there's a commercial development that's been approved that they could stick it in, but it isn't going to be an overly visible item. As far as the other type of establishments, the cultivators, the research facilities, the manufacturers, I mean, most towns are allowing that at this point, you know, with a host agreement, and I have a bunch of documentation for the board that we can address. That has nothing to do with the bylaw, but we can address as regarding the host agreements. There's a lot of documentation out there on them, so it's pretty pretty straightforward. Now, what I've established going forward is, it says, and I looked at towns that already had ones that were approved by the Attorney General. So, marijuana establishments including retail cultivator testing, research, product manufacturer, or other type of license on the marijuana-related business in the highway business zone only. This would be obviously by special permit. And it would require the negotiation of a host agreement with that facility. In other words, they would have to come and work out a host agreement with the select. An alternate approach is we could include an alternate article that prohibits the establishment of any marijuana establishment if this bylaw doesn't pass. Okay, that's what a lot of towns did. They backed it up with, okay, if the bylaw doesn't go through, then they would back it up with prohibiting it. And another approach, if neither passed town meeting, you could extend the moratorium.
Say that one more time?
If neither one of those went through, you could extend the moratorium, which would take a town and I think a ballot vote for that. So, I mean, those are the three situations that I see occurring, and how we want to, commit that language and stuff to the warrant. There's going to actually have to be an article for the change of the bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
If that passes, an article for the change of the use table.
Mm-hmm.
Then if those don't pass, then we'd have to have an article for these two alternate approaches. I'm going to pass over them if the zoning bylaw passes. I'm fairly confident it will. Fairly confident we've done the homework that needs to be done, and we've really reduced the footprint of where it's going to be an allowable use. So,
Okay. So do we need to add those to this, or do we have them in here?
Well, I added one for moratorium extension, so now we have 3, so we need another 1, or 2 more in addition to the ones we have.
we need the one for the zoning bylaw.
Yep, that we have.
The one for the table uses. We'd have to make changes at table uses for the marijuana establishment.
Okay.
Then we would need one that would prohibit it entirely.
Oh, man.
And then one, if those 3 don't pass, which I'm fairly certain that if those 3 don't pass, then we'd have to look to extend the moratorium because you can go back to the drawing board.
Okay.
So you have to add 2.
So we'd have to have 4 total.
Right,
Right,
that's what I
right, 2
have
on
now.
there right now.
General,
Yes, you
the
need to.
zoning, the moratorium, and the prohibit entirely.
Yeah, and I will have that language ready for you within the next few days, so you can put it on the warrant.
Okay.
And other than that,
We do have to print them, right? So when you do the mailers, we have to print the language in the...
you have to print the language.
Right, so that's gotta go.
Yes,
Language on all of them?
the zoning, definitely. The other ones, you can just put, an amendment. The zoning in the use table.
Okay.
It would have to be in there, but the others could just say, vote to prohibit marijuana use, vote to extend moratorium on
Okay.
marijuana use. Or motion to, whatever.
Any idea on how long to extend or...
Moratorium.
Yeah.
There's a lot of new language that's going to be coming out in February 2019 according to the CCC. And a lot has regarding host agreements too and stuff like that. So in, I would say at least 6 months.
So maybe till annual, till May?
Yeah, until May.
Right, okay,
And then we make a decision at that
Right.
point. I think we'd be all done with it by then, but
okay.
I just, yeah, I didn't want to rush anything because we don't want to make the same mistakes we've made in the past, so.
Why don't you put it to June? That way we get through the May meeting and you're not getting into a pinch on time.
You have a special town meeting in June, right? Or is it,
We haven't been.
Yeah,
you do, right?
we haven't been.
Oh, okay.
We haven't been, we've been
Well,
pushing it to
we would
November,
do-
but that's okay.
You would need to have it, you would need to extend the moratorium to a point, yeah, because we could still do
Tell you what,
it at the May
it's
meeting.
fine.
You could do the May meeting, what my concern
Exactly.
is having an overlap in time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Moratorium expires and we haven't had
Yeah.
the town meeting yet, that could be a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Might get that May snowstorm, you never know. But other than that, you know, if you guys have any questions.
I don't.
Mr. Chairman, did I miss why there's 2 articles with the exact same language except for one planning, one boss there?
One is zoning bylaw and one's general, so
Got it, okay, thanks.
Public
Anything
hearing
else?
is November 13th.
Yeah.
November 13th is going, it'll be, yeah, it'll be November 13th. We'll keep it simple.
In language this week.
Yeah,
Okay.
language this week.
So Bill, so I'm clear, it sounds like if we were to take things in stride here, or in order, shall I say, really it'd be to go through the zoning bylaw and the general bylaw change with the goal that we would establish a district for an establishment somewhere.
Well, it isn't really, we're not establishing an overlay or anything. We're just using the only district. I mean, the highway business district is confined to that area.
Gotcha, okay.
So
Okay.
it's only allowable in that highway business district.
Okay. And I think that's a better approach than just doing the prohibition of it right out of the,
Well, that's why I have these other items. We'll let the town decide.
yeah,
I mean, I can alter the zoning bylaw later if the town
okay.
doesn't want it and they reject the bylaw. You know, most towns are, you know, taking this type of approach. I mean, we're talking for a town like Mendon, it's probably a maximum of 1 establishment. And with the restrictions in the area that we have there, it's going to be very limited. It's with the school and the,
The soccer fields and stuff.
yeah, so it kind of squeezes it in a little bit. But in even the other facilities, it can only be a maximum of 3. Town will only allow a maximum of 3 for the others.
I'll save the rest of my questions for the public hearing.
Yeah, and we can, and to be honest with you, I feel more comfortable with that. It should be held in
Yep.
public,
Right.
Yep.
so.
Okay. Anything further on that one? No? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bill.
Should we just continue to go through this, start from the beginning?
That's up to you. You have other more pressing
All right.
people.
Let's come back to that then. Adoption of previous meeting minutes. Do we have any on?
Which one?
There are none, okay. That's okay. Correspondence to the board, discuss and consider police station building committee items. Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. This is just a follow-up from our discussion from 2 weeks ago. I had brought up a few items that needed some signatures, and you suggested that I contact Laura and just have them put on the agenda. So the first one is a couple of amendments to the G802. It's basically the contract we have with the architect. It's just an amendment, 2 amendments that the town accepts 2 contractors to do some work, basically. The work's been done, it's been paid for, it's more of a formality than anything. So I gave those to Laura just to clean up the work.
Okay.
Originally, excuse me, originally we didn't think we needed to do this, but the architect would just like this just to, for their record keeping, basically.
Okay.
The second one is, the second one is application for the ZBA. It's basically the fire station doesn't meet the setbacks, so we're just formally documenting which setbacks aren't being met. We'll be taking that forward to the open hearing the planning board has posted for the 22nd. So that's with Laura as well. And we just need the selectman to sign as owner. The application is being submitted by the architect. The third one is just a signature on a planning application, and I believe Kim took care of this last week already. It's another application to go for the same open hearing with the planning board on the 22nd. So I think we're all set with that.
All right.
There's a memorandum of understanding, a memorandum of agreement that's for the easement for the abutter. I know that's going back and forth between town council and the abutter now. I don't believe you have the final version yet, but when you do, we'll just need that signed by you if you want to put on a formal agenda. I was hoping to have it done by today, but it's not, so.
Okay, great.
And then the last, just a reminder, electric car charging station. We just need some help with somebody to move that at some point before construction begins. And just so you know...
Don, were we supposed to do something? But you mentioned that like several times now. Were we supposed to have done something by now, or?
I don't think so. I mean, it's just a reminder. No, we don't need it. I mean, currently, we're hoping to go out to bid this week, potentially put the ad in Combis this week. I know Mary Bolso will work with Laura to get that posting for next Wednesday. The plan is to have it posted Wednesday, the 17th, for the general contractor. That will give us, then the following week, we're going to have a contractor walkthrough. By October 31st, we'll hope to have the filed sub-bids for the subcontractors. And then we're targeting November 14th to have the general contractor bid opening. We're leaving ourselves an extra week just in case there are questions, some contesting of posting or whatever. So that'll get us to have the bids in place before Thanksgiving so we can have them available for the special town meeting on the 27th.
Great.
That's our current schedule.
Hey, Don, can you just give us a drop-dead date for the charging station?
Well, depending...
The charging station itself doesn't actually have to be moved. The car can be charged from any electric port, so we could actually temporarily charge it over at the old library, which is the current plan. So, I mean, it'll come down, but doesn't have to be reinstalled. We can just charge it.
So I'm just trying to,
Well, the only question is, right now, we don't have a plan to reinstall it on the future building because that's going to be the main entrance.
that's fine, I just need to know when you want to.
Yeah, assuming we get the contract, and then it'll take some while to get the contractor hired and put a shovel in the ground beginning of the year. So by the end of the year, for sure.
Saying before it snows.
Yeah. And then we do need to figure out what your plan might be to reinstall it sometime down the road.
If it's going over there.
Exactly, or wherever it, yeah, exactly. We need to decide, and that's really up for you to decide where would you like it to be reinstalled.
Probably not the best spot for it, but
Right.
that's the entrance of the station, so.
Yeah,
Just
that'll
the
be
reason
the
why I
main,
asked is because we've talked about it a few times, so I'm just kind of curious if it was putting you guys into a pinch.
yeah, like I said, like Kim said,
That's why I asked it.
there's no time pressure because you can charge it in any electrical outlet, so.
Okay. Very good. Anything else before a motion?
I think that's it.
Okay, I'll accept the motion.
It's this building amendments one, the first motion.
Yep.
I move to sign the police station building amendments, ZBA application and planning application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Do you want to handle that appointment right now, too, since I'm like one after?
Sure.
I move to appoint Nicole Vandervoort to the position of Communications Officer for the Mendon Police Department at Step 1, pay rate of $826.73 per week.
Second.
Discussion.
So we have an opening. Dispatcher Pomeroy left to become a supervisor at a ambulance corporation. So what we did is put a posting out. Unfortunately, we didn't get anybody trained, so we're going to have to train someone, send them through all the dispatching classes. We had 4 applicants that we put through to interviews. The Deputy Director of Emergency Management, one of my sergeants, and administrative assistant did the interviews. They scored it, and Nicole came out tops. Nicole is originally a Menon resident, lives in Millville now. I think she has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, so I think she'll be a good addition to the department. I mean, easy to train, and hopefully we'll get her on board in the next month or so. But she'll be starting next week. But again, there's about a month and a half of training to get her going.
Sounds good. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Where am I?
Why is Kim's...
Consider,
I'm sorry.
no.
Why is it... I'm sorry.
Why don't you back up?
You're out of order.
Oh, I am? Okay.
Yeah, go back to B, 4B.
Okay, sorry.
Consider Havco 2 Inc., DBA Greenhouse Pub alcohol license fee abatement request. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. So, let's see. So you're requesting an abatement because you haven't received the...
No, I'm
just reading.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Timing issue.
Right, okay. So you're looking for a refund of 900. Okay. Do you want to brief them? I mean, are you guys familiar with this at all?
I'm not.
Okay, do you want to just
Yeah, so
explain a little bit?
I just came in possession of the license, last week. So it's the full year of the license is $1,200, and it was paid for by the previous owner. But I had sent a check for the $1,200, and just it was suggested to me that maybe because I'm only using a quarter of the year, that the other 9 would be abated. And I'm also going to be having, my next bill's coming up as well for the annual renewal, so I didn't know how if it was I think it's each town does it their own way.
Right.
Is what I was told, so.
Yeah.
So when the license was transferred, even though it was transferred and paid by the previous owner, he paid
He had to
again?
pay it again for the, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve the Havco 2 Inc. DBA Greenhouse Pub abatement in the,
Abatement request.
abatement request in the amount of $900.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All set?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Did you have a question?
No, I was confused by the way things were indented. I thought we were missing something.
Oh,
That's all
okay.
right.
4D, discuss Kim's Way.
Is there a motion for that one?
No.
Like it.
Is Kevin Philbrick here? Okay, both of you sent the letter, right?
This is the issue that won't go away.
This is the 6-year
Hopefully it'll go away.
continuous. Let me, oh, you know what, I gave my letters. That's okay.
But do I have something?
No. Thank you. Do you have one of these as well?
No, I don't even have a packet. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's
why.
because it's probably in here.
But that says Mark, so I...
Okay. All right, why don't you start off and explain where you are now and what's going on?
So the road's paved, per the agreement from 2006 at the Selectmen, 2005, 2006 at the Selectmen meeting. I'm just really looking for confirmation and absolution from any other obligation that the town may think I have with respect to Kim's Way, improving Kim's Way. And then secondly, I'd like to ask the selectmen if you could formally put it on a list of streets that are public and continue maintaining it as you have been.
So currently, my understanding is that this road is a public way.
Correct.
In 2012, the minutes said, referenced in your letter, that the Board of Selectmen allowed you to improve the unimproved portion of Misco Road in order to access your lot in Upton to build your home. The project will be overseen by the highway surveyor. The items will need to be done to make improvements to the roadway for emergency vehicles to access the residents. The improvements must be acceptable to the highway surveyor and public safety. The roadway will be discontinued after the improvements at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen.
Correct.
So you're asking us to do something different than that?
Right now, I'm actually not asking you to do something different than that. I'm asking you to confirm that it's a public way, go on record saying it's a public way, and then, like I said, absolve me from any other obligations I have to Kim's Way.
Well, how's that different to what?
Well, to discontinue the road.
That doesn't sound, well, yeah, I know, but you asked a question about it being different. That sounds different than that letter.
Right, it is different.
So the original, at the Board of Selectmen's meeting back in 2012, there was, I mean, Mark just read it, with respect to what was in that decision. The selectmen at the time agreed to allow me to improve the road per a plan that's submitted and filed with the town. And then they were going to, at their discretion, potentially discontinue the road. And the plan back at that point was there was one house lot that was going to be built down there, mine, and that was it. Subsequently, when I started building, Gary Smith and Gray Wolf Construction ended up getting a second lot on the road, adjacent to mine. So now there's 2 homes on the road as opposed to 1. I'd like to have the town continue to maintain it. I mean, essentially just plow it, repair it as needed. I can't imagine it's going to need anything anytime in the near future. The highway surveyor's been involved the whole way.
So you're asking us to officially call it a public way, but it is a public way.
Okay.
So, I mean, just because it's a public way doesn't mean, it means the public can access the road. If we were to discontinue it as a board, we could say we're not maintaining it, but it would remain a public way unless we went to a town meeting and discontinued it as a public way completely, which would absolve the town, from my understanding, it would make it a private way, and we wouldn't have to maintain it, and we wouldn't have liability.
Okay.
So as of now, I mean, it's a public way. I believe, Alan, do you want to come up and talk about the maintenance or anything? I mean, and the other piece is you're looking to have it accepted as a town road, which would be done at a town meeting. So just process-wise, so you understand that. Hi.
Good evening.
How are you?
Wonderful. How about yourself?
Doing wonderful. So, in terms of maintenance, how do you look at this road?
I mean, I don't believe it's going to need anything in, you know, like Kevin said, in the, you know, the near future. Pretty much did what he agreed to originally with the Board of Selectmen. We already plow it. We have been.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, was it built to a road standard? No, but I mean, I don't have an issue with it. I mean, you know, back when he was doing it, we met with the public safety director and we went over things, and it seems to be what he wanted at that point. I'm sure the current chief would concur with that. although I have not personally been out there with him to look at it, but I don't see, you know, I don't see a big deal. You know?
You don't see a big deal in accepting the road, or?
Well, see, it was always an accepted road. That was how Kevin got to build his property down there. That road was never discontinued or abandoned. The problem being that when that portion of Misco Road went like that, and the portion that we plowed all the time went to the left, because that was easy for us to turn around. We turned around in that driveway down there and went back out. So for all intentional purposes, that probably wasn't where Misco Road went, but that's where we went, because it was way easier for us to turn around. I mean, this is going back way before my time. I think the problem being that when Kevin built his place down there, is somebody renamed that portion of the road.
Board at the time.
The board at the time, or somebody, yes. So that's what comes into question is, how do you handle that situation when you rename a road that was already Misco Road? Because once you get to the town line in Upton, it's Misco Road. And it's right at the corner of his driveway. Yeah. It's right there. So to me, that's where the question was, is it a town accepted way? Is it a private road? Is it what it is?
I gotta be honest with you, I don't understand the problem we're trying to solve.
Well, I think he's just trying to get us to plow and maintain it, which we do already. I never said that I wouldn't, nor did the board.
Okay, so if we're already plowing and maintaining it, what problem are you trying to solve?
Like I said, my goal here was, I made an agreement with the Board of Selectmen back in 2012. It's on record saying I was supposed to do this. I'd like the board to kind of confirm that I've satisfied my obligations. I don't want the town coming back to me in 5 years, 10 years saying, hey, you never did something.
You gotta fix it.
Right. So I want that on record first. And then, like I said, the second part, there was always, to me, I was very certain that that was the original Misco Road. I was very certain that was a public way, and that's why I came in with the original Board of Selectmen that I worked with, and kind of pushed on them as much as I did to get my house built. There was always a point of contention of whether, but from the town's perspective, whether that was a public way or not. So the problem I see is, my feeling was, you've agreed to allow me to improve the road. So that's implied that you've said that it's a public way. But nobody's come out and said it's a public way.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So I think I'm just a little bit confused. It sounded like, Mr. Philbrick, when you petitioned the town to build your house, it was an order of conditions that basically stated that in order for you to do that, you had to upgrade the road.
Correct.
Correct. All right, so it's an order of conditions. It also states here that you agreed that the road would be discontinued as soon as those improvements were done. Is that correct?
No.
The roadway will be discontinued after the improvements?
At the Board of Selectmen's, and I didn't, at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen. So there was no, at the time that this decision was made, there was no, we're gonna discontinue it or we're not. It was, Board of Selectmen at the time had wanted, for whatever reason, they worded it that way. But there was no commitment on either end.
It wasn't implied that as soon as you maintained it and you got access to your property, that the expectation would be after that you'd be maintaining the road?
No.
Then I don't understand why they wouldn't accept it as a road at the time they did it. That makes no sense to me.
I agree. I can't speak for what the other board did. I mean, I can only speak to why I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Like I said, my real concern here is I don't want the liability associated with the road myself, and I don't.
My understanding from talking to some of the selectmen at the time about this topic was that the reason they didn't accept it as a road at the time is they didn't want it as a road at the time.
Right.
That it was a special deal, it was a whole big harangue, because in order to get a house put on there, and they didn't want to be necessarily involved with making it a road, and if he wanted to put a house there, it was going to be on him. That's why the thing's not a road.
Right.
Why wouldn't it be a private way?
I think that has always been a, unknown. It was called Old Road to Upton. And at the Upton line, it's Misco Hill Road.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the time, I remember talking about it maybe a year and a half ago or something. We had discussed the road at that point was deemed or potentially deemed as abandoned because it wasn't being maintained. It was overgrown trail is really what it was. Correct? Mm-hmm. I wasn't part of this in 2012, so I'm trying to get up to speed on that, but my impression would be this would just be a public road. I mean, a private road, based off of what I'm reading here.
So,
Isn't this the same debate we had around Irons Way? It's similar, right?
Yeah, but it's a little different.
so the concern I have is that it was always a public way. The fact that the selectmen renamed that part, just the problem that Alan pointed out, the fact that the last board renamed that section Misco Road, or Kim's Way, doesn't somehow make it magically not Misco Hill Road, right? And it was originally Misco Hill Road. That was actually
No, it was originally
was it Misco?
Old Road to Upton. That's what it shows on this map. And then at the line between Mend and Upton, it becomes Misco Hill Road on the Upton side.
Correct. And that was a thoroughfare between, not thoroughfare, but that was a road between both towns.
Right.
Who was the road named for? Do we know?
Yeah.
Who was it? I got a reason I'm asking.
Yeah, Washington Street there, Draper's there, one that, buying all lane with Gary Smith there.
Mr. Gannett.
Gannett.
Oh, Gannett's wife is named
Yeah.
Gannett?
No, his daughter.
God is, okay, all
Gannett's
right.
daughter.
Then the suggestion I was gonna make, I'm gonna get myself in trouble then. Okay, no problem, I got it.
So,
The only concern about, from my perspective is that I did take a ride up there to take a look at it. Very nice job, by the way.
Thank you.
When we did Irons Way, which should have, in my opinion, also been a private road, Miss Irons went through the ZBA and conservation, everything, did a very formal set of plans through engineering and built the road that she's on down the street here to very specific specifications. Turnaround circle, certain width of road, I believe a sidewalk on one side of it, if I remember correctly, some culverts and drainage. She did everything that she was required to do to have it accepted as a public road. The improvements that you did don't meet those specifications, correct? Okay, so I have no problem saying, that the road would be discontinued and that we make it a private way, because then it gives you your opportunity to maintain it. But to make it a public way, it does not meet our zoning our zoning board requirements, correct?
Planning board requirements.
Planning board requirements, I'm sorry.
If we made it a private way, you wouldn't be able to plow it, right?
No, we could.
But we plow private ways now.
That's what I was asking.
Kinsley Lane,
Okay.
what we call Hill Street, which is Uxbridge Road extension, it goes up on the hill over there, across from Alicante.
Okay.
We plow that.
But doing
It is-
that doesn't solve the problem
What do you mean?
it doesn't solve the problem he's saying he has, right?
No, it
I mean,
would.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, what the only caveat is that the town is no longer responsible for maintaining a road.
Well, we're not now, right? We're not now responsible.
No,
for
he's
maintaining
asking, so right now Alan paves it.
No.
I mean, I'm sorry, plows it.
it. Plows it, yeah.
And that's where we're at, just like on any other private way.
Yeah. Well, all I'm saying is if we bothered to do anything like you're saying, it makes no difference in what we're doing now.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. And it
No.
doesn't solve the problem that he's.
No, it just puts, no, it does. It puts closure to the fact that he had a requirement to upgrade that road to have clear access to his property.
No, I understand that, but is Mr. Philbrick, right?
Yes.
his issue is, and I'm not saying that we should do something different just because he wants it different. I'm just saying, to clarify your suggestion, I don't see how it resolves anything on anybody's part, because on the one hand, we'll keep plowing it like we are now. It doesn't need any improvements right now. Mr. Philbrick's trying to get out of having to maintain it or plow it, and making it a private way doesn't help him, and we're already plowing it. So it does. So what you're suggesting is fine, but it doesn't do anything for anybody. That's
No,
all.
it just finalizes it. It makes it,
Right. Okay. So you could look
it
at that.
finalizes it.
But can you take, I guess, my first question is, can you take a vote tonight to say, I've finalized, or I've satisfied my requirements, and end it there?
You know, the issue that I have, or let me say my issue, my frustration that I have is that there was never a formal plan. It was, oh, let the highway department to tell you what you need to do up there. That to me is a private way. You know
Well, you
what I
know,
mean? There's-
but here's the thing. I really believe that it's a public way that, you know, we're going to maintain it as necessary. If we don't want Alan to maintain it, then this board can discontinue the road, and it remains public, but it's just not maintained. That's my view.
The chairman has it right. I think you're confused in the terminology. Kinston Lane is a private road, but it's a public way. Just because it's a public way doesn't mean it's a town road. It has to be a town-accepted road. You can have a private road be a public way. As long as the licensees have the right to go up there, the mailman can go up there and deliver your mail, it's a public way. So I think we're confusing the terminology. The chairman got it right, so I don't know what we're trying to accomplish with that.
Right, it's not an accepted road, but it's a public way.
I don't think you deem it a public way. It's a public way anyways.
Right, past history of it. I mean, so I read up on this afternoon, and it said that the board has the ability to discontinue the road, which ceases the maintenance of the road, but not the public access. If we want to discontinue it to no longer allow public access or maintenance, it has to go to town meeting. Then there's another term, abandon the road, but I didn't really look in that. Cindy might know.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, are you saying that, that short of discontinuing the road, any other designation for that road carries with it the responsibility of the town to plow it and maintain it?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so if that's true,
And the separate issue of Mr. Philbrick's responsibility of improving it comes from the agreement back in 2012 with the board that was just basically saying, you need to improve the road to the highway surveyor and public safety standards, and then we'll let you, access it. That's it. I don't think there's anything else that needs to be done with this.
as long as we don't discontinue it, then he's
Right.
he's off the hook anyway.
Right.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
So,
Okay.
that's it. I'm done.
Okay, so what is, I'm confused, so what does
That's
that
it.
leave
There's
us?
nothing to do. There's nothing that we need to do.
Well, no, clearly, he's asking
So,
us to.
so I'm just, I guess what I'm really asking for is just the board to acknowledge that I've satisfied my 2012 requirements. That's it, right?
I don't know what your requirements were. That's the
That's
thing.
right.
There's
I'm
no,
right.
there-
So-
I mean,
so the
if it's
requirements were-
satisfactory to the highway surveyor and
That's what I
public
just said.
safety, then you're all
To my
set.
point.
You have no responsibility to a public way.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was on record, that's all. I mean, that's the reason I came in. I just,
Yeah.
Okay, so tomorrow, if there's a big pothole on that road, you bring in the hot box down and you're filling it like any other road, right?
Well, a lot of other roads go without that too, so
Well, okay.
don't start prioritizing this.
You know what I mean.
Yeah,
I'd like to fix my road.
Yeah, well.
okay.
well,
I think
thank you for your
you're-
time.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. Hopefully, this is it.
I hope
6
so.
years.
I'm done.
Done.
There's a new homeowner we're done as well, so.
And this is on tape, so.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Nothing, because we didn't need it. That's what Mike was saying. I agree with you.
It's nothing to do. Okay, next. Thank you.
No, seriously.
Interview potential candidate for fire chief. No, let's get this going. Chief Kessler, come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Doing great, thank you. You don't have that, right? No. Okay. So, I'd like to read.
It's okay, don't worry about it, don't worry about it.
Would you like me to recap the process?
Yeah, and I think we should read the letter from MRI
Sure,
as well.
perfect. Let's,
Do you want me to start with that? or
Thank
you-
you.
no, let's give how we got there. and
Okay,
then-
go ahead.
So, many of you may recall, a couple months ago, the board decided that it had been over a year since we had conducted our last search for a fire chief, and we wanted to be able to consider all of our options. And so the board worked with MRI, again, Municipal Resources, Inc., out of New Hampshire, who was the firm that we used last time to help us conduct the search. We received 50 resumes. MRI narrowed down the number to about 25. We then created a series of 6 essay questions in which we mailed to the top candidates. The candidates then submitted those answers to the board. MRI screened and rated those responses. They then interviewed, they selected 5 candidates to invite to an assessment center that was held on September 28th here. We had, well, it'll be in the letter, the number of fire officials and town managers. We were here for that process. There were 3 candidates that day that elected to participate, and MRI has sent us a letter of recommendation based upon the results of that day.
Great. So I just want to read the letter from MRI. It states, Dear Ms. Newman, on September 28th, 2018, a team of 3 fire service assessors and a local town manager delivered a 4-station assessment center to 3 candidates. The result of this assessment is that William Kessler emerged as the leading candidate and the best choice for the town of Mendon. Chief Kessler clearly demonstrated the knowledge, skill, and ability required to address the challenges facing the Mendon Fire Department. As the assessment center concluded, our team unanimously believed that Chief Kessler is uniquely suited to move the Mendon Fire Department forward based on the following. Chief Kessler presents right fit for the town of Mendon. This is the right time to bring a visionary leader into the organization. We believe that Chief Kessler would be an asset to the community and would work with and complement the positive leadership of Police Chief Kersey. Chief Kessler presented a unique ability to calmly present controversial information and offers a strong ability to calmly and logically address fire service-based conflict. Okay. So, Chief, would you want to just give a background of yourself and, do a little introductory statement for us?
Sure. My name is Bill Kessler. We can go informal, Bill instead of William. I am a graduate of Bryant College, now Bryant University, the degree in business administration with a concentration in accounting. I spent about 13 years in the corporate world in accounting and information systems area. While I was in the corporate world, I did start as an on-call firefighter 30 years ago for the Uxbridge Fire Department. After my time in the corporate world, I decided to get my EMT and pursue a career in the fire service, which I started in 2000. While there, I did get an associate's degree in fire science, as well as completed the Chief Fire Officer program at the Department of Fire Services, the Massachusetts Fire Academy. I also advanced my EMS certifications up to EMT intermediate, and then ultimately paramedic, which I have maintained till today. In 2012, I did take over as chief of the Uxbridge Fire Department and have been in that position right through today.
Excellent. So I think what we'll do, you've responded to some essay questions, and I'd like to just go through those a little bit and, have you respond on some of that, and then maybe the board can ask some additional questions if we have some. So
No,
Oh,
I'm
I
just listening.
just heard a
No,
little
sorry.
noise from, that's okay. So one of the questions that was asked in the essay question responses was, after reading the attached management letter, which must have been attached to that, what was provided you, please provide thoughts on the overall state and condition of the Mendon Fire Department. If you want to just give a little brief on, after reading that letter, what your thoughts were?
Sure. Obviously, by reading that letter, there's some concern from MRI and ultimately, I think, the board of some changes need to be made within the fire department or some improvements. And there was a lot of items in that letter that kind of stood out. But one of the things that I mentioned in my response is that not only items within the letter, but from my viewpoint as a neighboring chief, when I've worked with the Department of Mendon, there's some people that really take the service to heart, and I think there's a good core group of people that can be utilized to, with a little bit of leadership and some direction to redevelop or rebuild the fire department to where it was 15, 20 years ago from what I remember.
Great. Could you talk a little bit about your strategy on how you may, consider making changes that you see necessary?
There's a lot of items that have been identified in the letter that need to be addressed. I mean, ideally, if I was to be selected, I would want to sit with members of the fire department, as well as members of town government, yourselves, and the other departments, just to kind of give me the background and feel for the town of Mendon and the culture and people's strengths and where some opportunities may lie. From there, we need to develop the training. I mean, that was one of the highlights of that letter. And trying to work out a schedule for the members that may not be at the certification level yet to try and work towards getting the firefighter 1-2 certification. It was also pointed out about as MRI's opinion that there isn't a point or people within the department currently to staff or to be an officer within the department. I think I need to bring my experience and work on the development of people, not just on the certification, which is a protection for themselves as well as the town, but also to try and develop the future of the department so that the day comes when I do retire that ideally, and it's every town, would love to be able to promote from within wherever they could. And that's the challenge that every chief has, and I work towards doing that.
Great. What are some of the roadblocks that you expect to run into should you be selected and implement some of the changes that you'd like to make?
Well, I think anytime there's change, there's a resistance. And, I've resisted change in the past, but I love change as well. So I need to sit down, I would need to sit down with the union, the career personnel, and just understand, get their point of view of the department and where they think it could possibly go. And then also sit with the on-call people. So, if there's a challenge, it's going to be from the people side. There's some other challenges. There's certainly a challenge on the equipment and trying to establish a capital plan moving forward to replace the equipment and adapt it to a town like Mendon, where the fire service and the way that we attack fires is changing. And we need to get there quicker and have the tools there as concisely as we can so we can stop that incident before it becomes too big. So I think there's some opportunities within the apparatus to make some changes. The challenge for that is, of course, the budgetary challenges within the town, both on the operational and capital side.
Okay. covered a lot of what, I wanted to get through. I wanted to convey to the public some of the response you had in the essay questions. Do you two have any questions specifically for Chief Kessler?
Chief, when we were talking about your strategy, and also noted in the management letter, we talked a lot about the on-call, the status of the on-call department. What would be your strategy for building that on-call department back up, and what would you envision going forward for that as part of the service?
Sure. We actually, about a year or so ago, in Uxbridge, we started a campaign to try and hire on-call people. I mean, the first step is going to be establish the requirements of an on-call position so that the personnel or the applicants understand the responsibility that comes with the job, as well as the steps that will need to be taken to become an on-call firefighter. I don't know if you saw in Uxbridge, we put out lawn signs, just do whatever we can through social media and the visual signs to get people to understand we need help. I would hold early on informational sessions where we talk about the career of an on-call firefighter and again, what is the challenges and what's required to do it, but also the benefit of serving your community. So we certainly do it. We need to have people understand, recognize that we do need help. Then we need them to understand the benefits of doing the job and be very upfront with them on the commitment to go through the Fire 1-2 certification class for call volunteer firefighters now. It's an almost 4 or 5 month process of 2 nights a week and every Saturday with occasional Sundays thrown in. So it is a big commitment, and we make sure that we're upfront with people. And then we need to work on the retaining of personnel, that once we have them, we need to make sure that we're understanding their challenges of doing the on-call job as well as working a job and supporting their household. I'd also reach out, now those would be new firefighters. I'm of the understanding that there are residents of Mendon that have joined other fire departments on an on-call basis. I would try to reach out selfishly to bring them back into town and have them support the town that they live in, as opposed to feeling like they need to be elsewhere.
You obviously been in public service a long time, and you've been dealing a lot with your boards over in Uxbridge and stuff. Can you give me an example where you've proposed something to the board that was looked upon unfavorably, or to the community was not in support of something you wanted to do, and how you responded to that?
Boy, I've had pretty good luck in Uxbridge. I think something that comes to mind quickly is a proposed bylaw that we worked on for the town. I worked on with Chief Laurie before he left, our police chief, regarding solicitation to the residences. We took the language from another community, modified it a little bit for Uxbridge, and it lost pretty handily at town meeting floor, which was very surprising to us, for the sake of the language would have required solicitors, the companies, to pay a $100 permit fee potentially every quarter. But I'm a strong believer in, I'm going to present what I think is best for the community, and whether it's Ms. Newman, whether it's the board, or whether it's the residents, when a decision is made, we need to move on, we need to accept it.
Great. And I guess the last question I have for you, Chief, is although I've heard your name an awful lot, I've never met you personally, but I've heard your name for years, actually, as being a strong chief. What do you think your strongest quality is?
It's probably, and this takes me back to my accounting days, it's the analytical side of me. When I was doing accounting, it wasn't necessarily the strict debits and credits. I did a lot of cost accounting, and from there I went into information systems, which is is analytically based as well. And so I think it's my ability to pull in information before making a decision, identifying potential options, and then moving forward with that.
Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
I only really have one question. I mean, you and I have interacted a number of times, and I've read the questions and answers, and seen your resume, and obviously see the recommendation from MRI, so I'm very comfortable. I think the only one question I really have is, you know, one of the concerns with attempting to regionalize with Uxbridge was to get scale required to be able to address a lot of the stuff in the MRI report, right, in order to be able to do it in a cost-effective way and increase service levels to where they really ought to be for the people of Mendon. In your view, you coming on, but short of regionalizing with Uxbridge, how impactful do you think we can be on improving the service levels based upon what you read in that study and what you know of what we've got going on here in Mendon?
I think we could certainly partially improve. I think to get to the full service level where MRI was, you're really looking for 24/7 coverage, that's going to take some budget adjustments. I haven't been in detail through the budget, but you know, just from a summary 50,000 foot point, the money's not there. So that's going to be a decision for Ms. Newman and the board as far as where priorities are in town, and whether you want to put those additional 3 firefighter paramedics on the job in order to get 24/7 coverage. Personally, I think that's important, and I understand that you know, the EMS calls and the fire calls may not be that significant overnight, but as I mentioned a little earlier, the fire services change. We need to get there quickly. And even if you're rolling out of the station with 2 people, I mean, we've modified in Uxbridge our fire attack. We went to the transitional attack, and our on-duty people can get there and get that fire out from the exterior before it gets to the point where we need 30 people and 8 tankers running. There was a fire in town on our Douglas Street where when they arrived, the on-duty crew was in the quarters. They arrived, fire on the first floor in the basement. Through the window on the first floor, put that out. Through the window on the second floor, put that out. Waited for Northbridge to come in as backup for personnel and went in and overhauled. So to get back to your question, and sorry to diverging a little bit, but we can make some strides with the current staffing, but if you really want the leap that MRI is looking for on the 24/7 coverage, it's going to take an adjustment of the operating budget.
Okay. Is that it? Yeah, that's all. I guess I would kind of follow up to that question, but in my mind, if we do decide to go forward and hire you and bring you in onto the team, I still believe that we should continue to look at shared services for addressing the needs that we have that are maybe something that if we do it on our own, it would increase our budget, but also is it somewhat beneficial to partner with a surrounding neighbor to address the 24/7 coverage? You know, is that something that you would consider looking at?
Sure, you know, and let me say try going 24/7 coverage in the Mendon Fire Station is to put people close by for that quick response. In lieu of that, I'm a big proponent, if you will, or believer in regionalization to some effect. I think that the fire service and many other disciplines within municipalities in New England cannot continue to provide the level of service we provide today as we go into the future. We're getting stressed on-call personnel, population's increasing, there's more calls, there's more expectations. There's no doubt in my mind that within a decade or 2, we're just going to have to do it. And actually, if we look back in probably the last decade, we've already started doing it. We rely on our mutual aid partners a whole lot more. As a matter of fact, on Uxbridge's run cards, once it's a confirmed fire, whether the police get there first or we get there first, Northbridge is coming in with a crew. So we have an automatic aid. That's a start towards regionalization. But we aren't taking advantage of a lot of the financial benefits. Regionalization, shared services, there's many different ways of doing it, whether you contract out the services, whether you merge into a fire district, whether you share a fire chief, all different levels. But you're not going to reduce the personnel needed. What you're going to do is improve service and reduce capital costs.
Right. Which is what I think we have been focused on.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, I'm going to give you the best that I can from, if I'm selected as a fire chief, what I think is best for the town and some alternatives. I would look for you, and actually one of my questions for you would be, what do you expect of your fire department? But, you know, I am a proponent of regionalization to some effect, to take advantage of those savings and potentially improve the personnel levels to provide better service.
Right. Great. Thank you. All right.
I'm good.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay. Do you have any questions you wanted to ask?
I do not. We met last week, so I was able to go over a couple of items then. So, Bill, if you could just hang around a bit, and
Sure.
we'll get back to you.
Sure.
Great.
We've had a chance to
Thank
talk
Thank you,
in
Chief.
executive session.
Thank you. Okay, next. I think we're going on to the warrant, right?
Morrison Drive.
Oh, Morrison Drive, yes. Why don't you guide that opening discussion?
So, we have been discussing the status of Morrison Drive on and off for about a year and a half. We're going to discuss later the funding situation for the police station, but as you know, it's been discussed as a potential site for many different projects in the town, potentially parks, potentially senior center. I think the board needs to consider providing direction on what it would like to do with Morrison Drive, especially considering the gap in funding we may have for the current police station. I would be interested in pursuing getting an appraised value on the building and potentially listing it for sale to see what the actual value is, so we could actually have some more data to help us decide what direction we should go in with it.
Right. Well, I know we've had those other, you know, like you said, we've had parks, the idea of that come through. I mean, we've had senior center idea come through. We've heard about selling the property, but not having that information on, you know, what is the value. You know, I think we're kind of in the dark on that point. So without knowing that information, we can't really make a decision.
Right, and I mean, I've talked about it with Don a few times as well. I mean, the amount of work and money and time that was contributed down there towards the construction of police station can't really be, you know, remiss. It's an incredible value to the community. And I think because of the situation we're in right now with the police station, it's sort of an opportune time to see really how we could put that type of contribution for the police station towards the current location.
Right. Well, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Well, I say explore that option. Is there a motion for that?
It was fast. I
mean, that idea has just been going around and around.
Yeah, it's the first I heard of it.
Maybe in my head it's been going.
Well, no, I mean, that idea is, we've brought up that idea a few times. I think, you know, when it comes to Morrison Drive, we've been struggling with this building for a long time. That building's been sitting dormant for the last 4 years. It's just wilting away, and we got to make a decision. 7 years, thank you. Yeah, well, yeah, it's you know, something has to happen with that building. You can't just let it crumble away, and all the efforts that the community put into that, that would just be a shame to see that just crumble to the ground. There is some infrastructure that would have to be rerouted and stuff like that if we did put it up for sale, just so you're aware. That does go over to the current fire station, so there's a lot of stuff that would have to be rerouted, but you know, I'm certainly in favor of of selling it. I'm a little disappointed that the CapEx committee hasn't had an opportunity to review this building and make a recommendation on it either, but, you know, we can't keep on kicking the can down the road either, so
Right.
that's just my opinion.
Sounds like we're in favor of.
I think it's a great idea. But the only thing is I just really think we ought to talk to the people who kicked in the cash about this and say, look, you know, I wouldn't, if we have a thing to vote on it tonight, I wouldn't vote on it until I would prefer to talk to the people who kicked out the cash first.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. For what purpose? I mean, they donated their money towards a police station. And if we were to sell it and we were to earmark those proceeds towards a police station, then, you know, those restricted funds that they promoted towards that capital.
I just think it's respectful to ask them.
Oh, absolutely. I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that the good news is it went towards a police station.
Yeah. I would expect they'd be for it, but.
Yeah.
So do we have a list of everyone? Do you know?
I can get it. Mr. Reed called me today. He's got the list, right? So I haven't returned his call yet, but.
Wouldn't it be advantageous to find out what the value is regardless of what the end
Absolutely.
purpose is?
Oh, yes, if that's what we're
Right.
voting for, I'm fine with that.
Right, I mean, assuming that the police station is probably the eventual source, but I mean, we should get a value or start
Right.
something in motion.
But we don't have to vote for that, right? You can just kind of do that.
Well, I need direction from the board.
Yes.
Well, I'm good. Yeah.
Chris, good?
Yeah, I'm good.
I imagine part of that you'd have to go to planning, zoning, all that type of stuff, so I don't need to vote for people to sign stuff for that. Or have to go to planning board meetings, zoning meetings.
Yeah, well-
It can be turned into something to sell.
Well, that's the only, and you're absolutely right, Chief, and my only concern is now there has to be an easement that goes across either the existing fire station lot, unless there's a back way to egress in. There's, I know there's some backland over there that potentially could access it, but if you can't find a way to get in there and the owner of the current land isn't willing to give it up, then, you know, you're gonna have to have an easement and stuff like that to get to that property.
Okay, anything else need on that?
I don't think so.
Great. Consider signing special town meeting warrant. Back to that. Start from number 1.
Lost my ward.
55 minutes and counting, Mr. Chairman.
We're gonna get it, we're gonna get through it.
Chris, you want another one?
Go.
I had notes on my other one, but
Just waiting till they're ready.
it's all right.
They're
Just go
ready.
for it, go for it.
You're good.
Okay, so since we have not met since the warrant was started to be formulated, this is technically your first pass at the warrant, but it does close today. So there will be a number of changes that have to be made. So my guess is that a motion, if any, is going to improve review by town council and myself, because this is very preliminary. Some of these articles already are coming off or being added, as you heard earlier.
I can't believe the number of them.
I know, it's,
Yeah, I think there's, I mean, I looked through, and there
On
are
a
some
special.
automatically that I don't want to see going forward, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will run through them quickly, and then stop me if you have additional questions. Bills of a prior year. I don't know if you want me to go into the individual detail right now, but we have about $25,000 worth of bills of a prior year that will need to be paid.
That has something to do with trash, you said?
Yep, the new trash contract, some
Okay.
smaller bills. Snow and ice is 122, 892.
Do we have free cash certified yet?
We do.
Oh, that's right, you did, we got something on
It's
it.
478,000. We won't have excess levy until October, end of October.
Okay.
We have $170,000 in reserve for negotiations. Remember, we put that aside for a number of different purposes. And we have $40,000 in FinCom reserve. Those are the current, we have 815 in stabilization, we have 228 in CapEx. Okay. So, Article 3 is if we successfully negotiate any of our employee contracts before the STM.
Okay.
Article 4 is from the assessor's office to reallocate the compensation within the individual lines of the Board of Assessors.
Okay.
Article 5 is if we are transferring anything into stabilization. Article 6 is if we're transferring anything to CapEx. Article 7 is OPEB. Article 8 is from the Board of Health. It's $12,000, but potentially less. This is negotiating the end of the contract with Republic. Article.
Sorry, what does that mean? I don't understand.
They switched to a new provider, E.L. Harvey, and there's a final bill that's owed to Republic, but they're still negotiating the final payment amount because there are some outstanding articles like what the value of the electronics recycling day, those things that they were supposed to provide in their contract that they did not. So it may be less, but it should not be more. Article 9 is the CPC buckets for the individual amounts. Article 10 is the article for the police station, whether we are going to borrow or transfer or some other combination of funding. Would you like to speak on that now?
Do we need to?
Yes, since I don't think we've spoken yet at a meeting about what we're going to need for the police station for a special town meeting.
Well, won't that be teased out once we get the,
Well, we won't know until we know what the number is, but considering, there are a number of different options, it's either.
The how, right?
Yes, the how.
okay.
Could be any combination of things. For instance, if the number is between 0 and 500,000, maybe we're doing A, and if it's between 5 and 7, we're doing B, and if it's between 7 and, let's just stop at 7.
Did you strategize those out? Do you have a strategy for those three options?
I do.
In 3 scenarios?
Well, you made a recommendation before.
I did. I thought that we should use a combination of CapEx funds that we have available and then do small individual one-year notes borrowing so that we don't have to go back and ask for a, debt exclusion. But it really is dependent on how much it really is. So what I do have planned between now and town meeting is for our financial advisors to come back and to have a meeting with the FinCom and the Police Station Building Committee and the Board of Selectmen, so you guys can actually finalize, because if the number is coming back in on the 24th, Thanksgiving, if it comes in on Thanksgiving.
We should have the bids before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And just so you know, we just did another round of cost estimating. Actually, the last cost estimate was about 100,000 less than it was in August. And there's a couple of line items in here where we have some excess that we know we've already come under. So,
excellent.
we still have a problem. It's still a $6 million project with a $5 million, budget. But we're sending it out to bid with 4 alternates, so that we could potentially do some stuff later down the road. The Sally Port, the demolition of the police station, the 2nd floor, and then the final asphalt paving of the lot, which could all be done sometime later if we so choose, if we don't have the funding. That should hopefully reduce the funding required by about $400,000. So again, until we get the bids, these are just estimates at this time.
Right.
Didn't you say that it was Clark Rowell that come up with that multiple notes thing?
And the town accountants and Don and I.
Okay.
So do we need to decide that tonight?
No, you don't.
Okay.
But I do think people need to be made aware that what this article is.
Right.
And we will have, I don't want to the best of our ability, our meeting is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, so there'll be very little time in between when we know what the number is and when we have to decide on the floor what it is we're going to be doing. And so the best that we can be prepared for that, the better for everyone.
Sure. Okay.
I guess I look at it this way, is that we're working on the premise that it's going to be north of what we've appropriated already, We're working on a strategy. We'll work out the best strategy we possibly can prior to the town meeting date. You know, and until then, until we have any more information, there's nothing more to say about it.
So I'll be sending you a meeting invite for a joint meeting of all the groups, end of October, beginning of November.
Okay, perfect. Next.
Okay, Article...
I'm sorry, can I just make one more comment? So, Mr. Chairman, I'm very concerned about the complexity of those options, so I'd kind of like to be heavily involved in the research
Well,
of that.
I think
so
at that joint meeting will be a good time to hash that all out.
No, I understand, but I'd like to be included in the in any meetings that go on with Clark Rowell or whoever in discussing that are offline, discussing
That's the only meeting that's being planned.
Yeah, that will be that.
That's the only one that's being planned? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Article 11 is for complete streets. So the board needs to make a decision about the direction it would like to go with this project. You may recall that we received a grant for $399,118. Our original bid estimates that we submitted were, the engineer's estimates were about $600,000. When we first went out to bid, we received bids, the lowest bid was about $625,000. 3 of the 4 bids we received were missing documentation, and so we decided to rebid the project about a month later. We received only 1 bid. That bid came in at $685,000, which leaves us shy about $286,000. We did appropriate at a past town meeting funding from CapEx, well, funding from a combination of leftover funds from bonds of $180,000 to either the town hall campus or to the Complete Streets project. So we have a couple of options. I have asked the engineer to provide us an estimate of the project at the actual amount that we've received for the grant, which is $399,000. I have that. I can tell you how the project would be downsized, and if we went in that direction, I would go out to bid immediately so that we could start construction and we'd be done by the state's deadline of the end of this fiscal year. We could keep the remainder of that $180,000 and just in case the bid comes slightly over and then we have funding available, or we could allocate some other additional amount from CapEx, free cash, or stabilization for the project at town meeting.
I was just going to say, do you want to just run through the pieces of the project that would be
Sure.
taken out if we just
I don't have a
use
map
grant
here,
money?
and I'm not sure that you will remember the specs of the project, but essentially it's like a Y out in front of the town hall that included decorative lighting, brick sidewalks. The grant that we received, the Complete Streets grant, is for pedestrian and safety improvements, ADA, sidewalks, those types of things. So the revised bid estimate, which is what we have available in funding, would remove the decorative street lighting. It would remove texturized pavement from raised crosswalks and just provide basic crosswalks. It would eliminate the work west on Maple Street, west of Elm Street, eliminate work from Main Street north of here. And it would only, the brick sidewalk would only be limited to the front of 3 Maple Street. The rest would be concrete sidewalks. It's hard to do without a visual aid, but that's just
the
premise.
So essentially, we would just be doing the handicap and pedestrian improvements.
Which is really what Complete Streets is about.
Correct.
Well, in bicycle access and...
Right, those access,
Yeah.
pedestrian access type of. You know, so we can just go forward with the grant money and go out to bid, or we can wait, or we go out to bid with the 180 and the 399 grant, or to do everything we asked town meeting.
It's 685.
Push this off more, which I'm a little concerned.
So it's either 400,
Which we have.
585, or 685.
Right,
I just tried.
Yes.
potentially.
Right, and the 400 we've received.
Yeah. 685 is the full ball of wax, 585 scale down version.
And that was the
400
lowest
Only,
bid.
and at this point, we go out to bid with 685 in the, in our pocket, and we get the bids back, and none of them are that low.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's a rush, right? Hey, this is the way I look at it. We have $400,000. We can, if that covers all the accessibility issues that we've been challenged with for years. If we can take that 180, throw it towards the police station, that's $180,000 more we get at the police station. You know, that's just my opinion. I'd love to have decorative lights and brick walkways. I think it would be fantastic for the town and would add to the character, but, you know, right now we're dealing with an issue with public safety of getting them a station that they need, and I think that would take precedence over decorative lighting.
I'm also concerned, and I agree a lot with what you said, Chris. I'm concerned that the longer we wait to go out to bid, the less time there is for the work to begin, and then we just run out of time and then we don't get anything.
Right. Well, I mean, the state was pretty gracious. I think they gave us an extension.
Right,
They
we've
understood
already
the
got one
situation with the
extension.
bids. Our project is not that big, so it's not as if we're hyper competitive. I mean, but I mean, they would like to see us complete it before the end of this fiscal year, and so I would really like to go back out to bid.
So much time left.
Right.
Right. I mean, I
That's
agree,
fine.
Chris. Do you have any?
No, I'm fine with what you're saying. I agree.
Okay.
So we'll take that off. Right, we
Okay.
don't need it.
Right. And I will send the new revised estimate out to bid.
Great. Next.
Okay. We spoke to Dan a little bit about this today. This is money to make a public water supply at the Taft Library.
Yep.
We don't have a cost yet on either of the two.
Wait a minute, the old building?
New one.
The new one, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Article 14 is transfer for litigation settlements. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but my recommendation is that we are going to transfer that money directly into the legal operating line of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Article 15 is for shared fire services.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to speak to that?
I mean,
Or would you like to wait and come back to it after potentially making a decision on the fire chief? We can always table it for tonight and come back later tonight.
what do you think?
Let's skip it for now.
Okay. Next.
Okay, Article 16 is for funding for money for a building maintenance person. You may have heard me mention this once or twice or 10 times. And we said that we would bring it back at fall town meeting.
Yep.
What I would say is I'm still exploring the different options of how that would best serve this location still, which is, I'm not sure if it's a one person, I'm not sure if it's a one person overseeing individual project contractors, I'm not sure, but right now I put a price tag on it about $25,000, just still working on that.
Okay.
Article 17.
Just so you know, on that article, I'm not really in favor of that right now.
Yeah, me either. I'd like it off. If we had money to spend, recurring money to spend, I'd rather see more money to the fire station for more personnel than I'd want to see a building maintenance guy that we've lived without all this time.
Well, we've struggled by with.
Well, I
without all
understand,
this stuff,
if something happens with the building, okay, so you gotta fix it and you got a more dilapidated building. If you got an emergency call and you don't have enough paramedics and somebody dies, that's a different story. So
Are we hiring additional fire personnel?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying if we have money available on a recurring basis, I'd rather see it go towards that if we can. So that's why I wouldn't be in favor of this now.
Can we leave it on and agree to pass over it if we
It's fine.
get to that point?
I already know I don't want it, so I'll leave it up.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of it at this time. I'd reconsider it in the, at the annual, but, you know, once I see how the money teases out, but I'm just not in favor of it.
All right. Next.
Okay. Article 17, we spoke about before. Earlier in the year, you approved the potential creation of a shared planner position, provided that we could find funding for the position. I'm putting it on here to formalize that decision and also to tell you that we are part of a regional grant with CMRPC in order to secure this position. I don't have an exact dollar amount, but right now what I have is about $17,000.
Sorry, 17,000, I'm confused.
For our share, for our portion of what a planner would cost.
So that'll
through
get
this-
teased out prior.
Correct, it's happening right now.
I'm willing to leave that on, and if we have to pass over.
And that's
it,
already in the
Say again?
budget?
I'm willing to leave it on if we have to pass
The-
over it, we can.
Okay, well,
No.
I'm against that one on the same basis I'm against the previous one, but that's, we'll go with what you want to do, Chris.
Okay. Next.
Okay, we're leaving it on, okay. Article 18 is for 8 additional hours for the executive assistant to the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator. Last year, we met over 30 times, an average of 2.5 times per month. The current executive assistant only works 32 hours per week. I would request that you recognize that this is a full-time position at 40 hours a week.
Cost?
It's 5,000, hold on. $5,449.60.
Okay.
Okay, next.
Okay. Article 19 is to increase the HR benefits coordinator position from 18 hours to 25 hours with benefits modeled after the previous town accountant's position. The HR benefits coordinator position is currently maxed out at 18 hours, doing both payroll and HR functions for the town. 25 hours would increase the training purposes. It would also increase all of the compliance issues that the town is currently having. It would actually provide support in HR that we are unable to do right now.
Was, originally when you
18.
hired that person, were they responsible for payroll?
Right. So we modeled it on 18 hours because we had reduced the town accountant's position in half in order to afford the HR position to get it started. Then we downgraded the number of hours in the treasurer collector's office in order to also afford it and had them do payroll intake. At this point, the payroll piece is working and we are there, but there's not enough hours besides basic insurance processing and really other things, basic day tasks to get to the additional HR things that I had hoped the position was going to be able to get to.
Such as training? Is that
Right,
what you-
training, we are already currently outsourcing for the personnel policy, but even like today, I had her assisting me much of the day while we are doing negotiations, and that means she's not getting to the other things she needs to do.
What's the cost for that?
The cost would be $13,268.
I'm not in favor of this one either.
That's a little.
So I just want to make sure that I'm clear. Was there an increase of scope of the work that we hired her for, or is it that we underestimated the amount of time?
Let's put it this way, it's a recognition of talent and ability plus need. So we were lucky to get 18 hours just to get started, but realistically, this is a position that someday will grow to full-time.
That didn't answer my question, though.
Oh, well, she can't do the training pieces now or the,
Let me ask the question again.
okay.
Was it an increase in scope than when we originally posted for this?
Oh, definitely. Well, every
Okay.
opportunity that I get, I keep adding additional things.
Okay.
So,
I don't understand that. What does that mean? Every opportunity you get, you add additional things. You add additional things to what she's responsible to do?
well, it's almost limitless, the amount of because we've had no HR previously in the past, the amount of things that we could catch up on or do moving forward is endless. I mean, from basic form structuring to policy research to analysis about different types of insurance options for us, adding additional benefits, I mean, on and on.
Well,
We're a 6,000 person town. I just don't.
I I see the value, but I would have preferred the building maintenance person over, if we're gonna spend that much money on, I don't know. I don't think right now is the time to do it, that one.
Take it off.
Okay. Article 20. This is a request from the town clerk and myself. The current person in the town clerk's office is about to retire from the position, creating a vacancy for a position that's only 9 hours per week. We had talked many times about having a floating municipal clerk downstairs. This would provide the additional 8 hours to have a minimum part-time person. The cost would be $4,441 to have an 18-hour-a-week floating municipal clerk.
Serving in multiple offices.
Correct. In addition to potentially being appointed the assistant town clerk.
Why are we even looking for these to be added on a special? Why aren't we doing this?
Some of these were requests that were brought.
Okay, well,
I'd rather see something like that pushed out to the annual.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
This one is simply because the position is about to become vacant, and we're going to be hiring for the position.
We can't hire at the same rate, same,
We can, but it's 9 hours per week, so the scope of the candidate,
yeah, I mean, it's tough to get someone to work for a day,
right?
1 day a week.
So
I just think we have to be more focused on addressing our issues in order of priority. We just had a long conversation with the potential new Chief Kessler and the significant problems we had. It's clear that it's going to take more money than we've got. There's no question that people's lives are more important than any of this stuff. And I'm not in favor of it.
Okay, next.
Okay. Article 21 is a request from Chief Harris to apply for a grant for ambulance replacement. It's a 10 to 20% match. He doesn't know. There we go. $20,000 to $40,000.
that's the grant?
20 to 40 is the match.
Oh, is the match?
The grant would be for the entire cost of the ambulance, so he's got $360,000 on here.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to say I'm confused. I don't understand what the article gives us to do.
The 10 to 20% match portion of the, so he can apply for the grant.
So what you're saying is the impact to the community would be about 40 grand?
Yeah, 20 to 40.
Okay, but why do we do it now? Because it has to be encumbered in order to apply for the grant?
This, because he's asking for it now.
No.
Hold on. Chief?
Timeframe to file for the grant is right now. The time that we have until the time of the grant is 24 days from today, basically. We have this 1 month opportunity to write the grant, file for the grant, and wait to see if we get the grant. The grant won't come out till, I believe it's April of next year.
So then why do we have to go to the town for this now?
Well, I'm trying to get the money in there in case we do get the grant, we have the 5% match. I'm not asking for the money to give to me, the money right now.
But what if it's not enough and we need a little more, right? Why wouldn't we go to the people once after we've got the grant and only then put the money aside?
Well, I was looking forward to try to get the money for the match of the grant, and if we need a little bit more, then we go after it afterwards.
To prove commitment, maybe?
Make sure that we had the money for the
Commitment.
match prior to going forward.
Well, that's why I was wondering. I was curious whether or not they required, in order to apply for the grant, you had to have the money encumbered. I didn't know if that was the case or not.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Selectman Schofield here, is that I think it's more enticing for the community to go say that we have a grant in hand, and we need to come up with some additional resources to in order to meet our obligation to that grant, and that's going to be enticing for the community to go forward, and we know exactly what that figure is. than you throw a hypothetical out at a special town meeting
Right.
of we might get it, we might not.
Not
what
only
time
that,
meeting.
but anybody that's not paying 100% attention will think we came back to the people twice.
Right, right,
if we
right.
needed more money.
Yeah. So I'd suggest that we, in my opinion, I'd suggest that we still go after the grant.
Yeah.
You know, and thank you so much for going after it. Love to see us get it. And we can do that, and then I have no problem. At that point, put it on an annual, wouldn't it be too late?
Right.
It'd be too late to go for the grant at the annual town meeting.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, for the funding.
For the fund part, yeah.
Mr. Phipps.
Do we have some money put away for the ambulance now?
No.
That way there, if it does go for the grant, do we have like $15,000-$30,000 put aside already? For over the years?
I was unable to locate, so I found the ambulance reserve today. It's had no balance since 2015.
That's because the money wasn't being put straight into the ambulance reserve. We were voting it in at town meeting. It was going somewhere else.
Right. So my recollection is we had about a $30,000 to $40,000 balance in there
Right,
somewhere.
that's right.
But I haven't been able to find where that is.
I think it's somewhere.
Well,
Well, there's another reason not to vote this
Right,
now.
yeah, there's got to be some research done on that.
Okay.
Okay, does the same thing go for the next one on the radios? You don't need to have that?
The next one for the radios is, I don't need to have it at this moment, but I'm just afraid if we do get the grant, you decide you don't want to go for, I'm trying to do is go for a regional grant with another community. It would be easier for us to get it. So I thought if we had the money put aside for that grant, it's not going to be any more than that amount of money.
When is that due? When is the grant expected to be announced?
The grant won't be announced until about April again,
Oh.
at that time.
Okay.
I'm just trying to look forward to make sure that we have the funds. That one there, we'd have to have the funds to pay for, not the grant. The other one, we could be able to push off because it would take us a year to get the ambulance once it's authorized for us to get it.
Okay.
So,
Approximately $6,000.
Okay, which number are we on now?
22.
22.
You know, again,
Same thing?
yeah.
Yeah, same opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would be remiss if I didn't point out that he had also submitted another article to me that would be here. And it's for funding to go towards a staffer grant that would provide funding for up to 3 years for a fire position. Do you want to speak to this?
I filed for looking to file for a staffer grant. Staffer grant, I put in for 4 personnel. And
For what personnel?
Four
Four, okay.
I'm looking forward to putting forward for 4 personnel. I didn't know if we had going to hire a chief or not at that point when I filled this out. So I'm looking to put on 8 personnel, should have 2 person per shift, and that would give us 8 people. The opportunity of getting 75%, a grant for 75% for the first 2 years, at a cost of about $80,000 per year for the first 2 years for 4 personnel. The third year, we'd end up getting 25% for the third year. I can't go forward unless you folks authorize me to be able to go forward with it, with a letter from the board saying that, yes, we can go forward.
But that's
Even if we
separate
do,
from this, right?
it's separate from this one here, separate from the other one. This is a completely separate one. This doesn't come out till next month.
Right. I didn't include it on here because it's,
I don't know what the implication to the budget is. but-
right,
Yeah,
and the long-term implications after
it
3 years
sounds-
just isn't sustainable. It doubles, almost doubles the number of personnel in the department. So,
It sounds like we're not at the right point to coincide with that grant. I mean, it's a potential grant for us to look at for the future, once we've kind of figured things out.
How long would they be funded for?
3 years.
3 years. It'd be a 3-year grant.
It would be
Fully
75%,
funded?
75%.
The first 2,
75,
for 2 years and 20% for the third year.
Okay, so shouldn't we put some effort into saying, okay, well, if we were to do that, how could we ramp up to that, right? Rather than lose that opportunity, should we at least analyze the numbers and see if it's doable?
Well, I think, is there
And do you have
is a
to do-
firm, I'm sorry, is there a firm commitment, just before, because it's going to answer your question, is there a firm commitment that once the board sends a letter saying that we're willing to move forward with this, you're obligated to do it if you're a recipient of the grant.
You can deny the grant.
You can deny the grant.
You can deny the grant.
Okay, the other question I had, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, so do we, does it have to be 4? Can we do some other number?
You can do any number you want. I picked 4, that would put 2 personnel per shift. That's where I was going for, to limit to 8 people.
Okay, so my 2 cents worth is I'd like to see some creative math and see if it's at all doable to, if we were able to get that, if we could make the transition off, wean ourselves off in the 3 years. I'd like to see if that's possible.
Does that also?
This grant involves the salary, also the benefit package.
I was just going to say that was my question. Okay. We could always pass over the article if we wanted to do a quick analysis of where we'd land financially.
What would go on the?
I do think maybe, much like the article we passed over above and that we're going to come back to, you might want to wait to make a decision on this until you know what you're doing, the department overall.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Let me know what you want to do. If you want me to go
I'm
forward.
going to call that Article 22 and a half.
Well, 22 is gone, so you can just call it Article 22.
Don't confuse me.
I don't know how you managed
Okay.
this, but go ahead, next.
Article 23 would be funding due to the main floor, what we've done to the other floors, and to finally utilize the $16,000 that we got approved 3.5 years ago for the wood floors on the first floor of the town hall. So I would be getting an estimate, and my guess it's going to be somewhere between $35,000 and $50,000 to do the paint, the carpet, and everything else for the main floor of the town hall.
So please, whatever we do, please let's make sure we keep the Historical Commission and Historical Society ladies involved the whole time, and please make sure we notify whoever it is they think we're supposed to be notifying, even if we think we don't have to.
Why would we want to do this now and not push this out to the annual?
Well, in the past, we have done them during a special town meeting when we had free cash available, because it really is, it's kind of a project that we do quickly, right? We've done one in the summer and one in the winter. This upstairs, I think, costs $25 total. The next door library costs probably double that. I mean, we've been creative with our financing. Ideally, we've put this floor off because we had done a plan a few years ago about a total redesign of the town hall. But at this point, you know, when we're having people here, there's a noticeable difference on that main floor, between that floor and the rest of the building, and I think that that's having probably a negative effect overall.
You don't mean this floor, you mean one floor down?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, and so just like
Needs to be.
2 weeks ago when we had the Fire Assessment Center, it's not a very nice place to be bringing potential candidates or anyone else into as a representation of the town. And so, you know, a little paint and carpet goes a long way. We don't have to do the full remodel now, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to do it in the future, but at least to make all of the floors look the same and next door, I mean, so they,
Okay.
Well, you get 16, so.
the floors,
to
yeah.
start.
You know, again, you know, when we're talking about trying to find a creative way to fund a police station, that's super important to our community. As far as I'm concerned, nickels and dimes count at this point, so,
Right.
you know, if there's something that we can defer, I prefer to defer, but I'll leave it up to you guys.
Well, I figure, I mean, if we appropriate funding now, it won't probably be started until spring.
Right.
And I'm less worried about one-time expenditures on it, special or whatever. I mean, I'm kind of okay with that.
Well, truthfully, I'm a bit concerned about what happens once the police station gets built, and that looks lovely, and then there is such a substantial difference besides the outside peeling paint on the outside of the town hall,
Which needs to be.
what the main floor of the town hall looks like next
I
to
think the new
this.
police station making the town hall look terrible is a good problem to have.
It may be, but I'd like to put a little bit of that off now. I'd like to put a little bit of it off.
I agree.
You know,
Okay.
I'll leave it up to you too. Again, I would probably, if it was me, and it doesn't say that we're not going to do it in the future, but, you know.
I get it. I'd like to keep it on.
I'm okay with keeping it on.
Thank you.
24, the planning board revolving account was short 1605 because it is a special revenue account and it has to get its own article to transfer the money back in. 25 is
Tree
Alan's,
money.
Alan's gone, but he needs more money in the tree warden budget, both to hire someone and for tree cutting because of the condition of the trees.
Yeah, it's bad.
Right.
Is this a one-time requirement, or are we gonna
I
expect
think it's
10,000 more every year?
No, we actually increased his budget in both of these lines last fiscal year, but because of the current status of how many dead trees are and where they are with power lines, he's very concerned, and he thinks that they need to be taken down as soon as possible.
The answer is, this is a one-time bump.
Correct.
Okay, well, what I typically see happen is we put that in the system, it artificially bumps up for the 1 year, then when you pull the budget out for the next year, it looks like we appropriated that much unless you know the delta, so we just gotta remember that
You could make it a special article, you don't have to transfer it into the line.
Okay, however you do it, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
That budget is small, so hopefully. Article 27 is $30,000.
Wait a minute, 26?
Did you see something?
They're the same. 25 and 26 are both money for tree cutting. One is contractual and one is,
But is it 10,000 total or 20,000 total?
it's 20,000 total in two different lines. One is to pay, to hire people to cut, and one is to pay for the, okay?
Okay.
Okay, yep.
27 is $30,000 to reimburse potentially for a architectural study for this senior center.
I'm a no. Should wait till the money comes in.
Agreed. Take it off.
Why, but why is it here before the money comes in then?
They wanted to have it so that the state reimburses us
They wanna
and they
get
can
moving.
get started on it. But
Oh, I see what you're saying, so it's almost like an internal
But
loan.
you know what, it's a risk because
You don't know that we're gonna get it.
it could change. I mean, state's budget could change and they don't give us the 30,000.
Well, they could argue that we've done it for CPA on numerous occasions. We've loaned from
Yeah,
stabilization.
but that's different because we're in control of that.
What do you mean?
But we're more in control with CPA than with this.
No, we were
random-
waiting for reimbursements or matches or whatever from some external agency, and we loaned the CPA on numerous occasions. We
Yeah,
loaned
but
the
this is a
money.
bit
The
different.
the risk is a lot lower because we still have revenue coming into the CPA account. So if we didn't receive our match, we'd still be able to cover. That's the only difference.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I've
Yeah,
just
I agree
seen
with
that these budget earmarks, there's a risk.
You would have an inside track on that, wouldn't
I
you?
would. So I would not be in favor of doing that with this
Okay.
money.
I'm good with that, yeah.
As much as I'm in favor of, getting this project, started and having the council look at this, I'm just 30,000, I'm not ready to.
Okay.
Okay, 28 we spoke about earlier with Bill Ambrosino, that's the general bylaw.
29 too, right?
29 is the zoning bylaw.
We're going to add two.
30 is the licensing issue about the word radius. You have to make a recommendation.
Well,
That
I
it can
thought,
go.
I thought our idea was to increase the
Decrease. Decrease.
radius. Right, excuse me.
You cause him all kinds of more trouble going the other way. The poor guy.
So what is the current radius, do we remember?
1,000 feet.
I will remind you again, it is at the board's discretion to decide
Well, we
To
need
decide what?
how it is measured.
This is what the bylaw should say. It should specify how it's measured, which means, in my mind, it should be the road frontage between the property, not the if the property is a square, and then you have another property over here, you shouldn't go by, you shouldn't go by the closest point, even if it's in the back of the lot. That's not what the intention of the bylaw
Okay, if we
was.
measured that way, would that have solved this particular person's problem?
Not necessarily. I think it was close, but it wasn't.
Isn't it more appropriate to say, to just amend the bylaw to say, to allow exceptions to be allowed by the Board of Selectmen?
It's up to you anyway.
No.
No, that was the whole point, was it wasn't.
Yeah, we had to abide by the bylaw. There was no way around,
Well,
with that, whichever way you measured it, it was not,
That's right.
was not within the radius.
That's right.
That's why we got to the
well,
conclusion that we had to.
we had two different measurements from two different town officials.
Right,
One
but-
done in February and one done in July. So the board does have the discretion. Now, why the measurements were different or different numbers, that's anybody's. Could have been an
One was street frontage and one was back.
Yeah, it could have been a bad calculation, but having two different numbers, so.
Because they were measuring from different locations.
Right, so if you clarify, to your point, where they're measuring from.
Frontage, it should be the road frontage.
If we're talking about a bylaw change, it really should be going through the planning board, and the planning board should.
Not this, is a general bylaw.
Bylaw, that's right.
Okay, all right.
That's why.
Which is why the other official should not have been measuring it in the first place. So, but anyway, so,
I
Road
think it should be
frontage,
based off of frontage, that's what I think.
road frontage,
Yep.
okay, but
properties.
didn't you say, though, that doesn't solve the problem?
No, but we need to clarify where the measurement is being taken from.
And you
It
wanted
should be
to reduce
clarified in the
it.
bylaw.
Not from the
So that
center of
there's
the
no
lot.
confusion ever again as to like the closest point from the back of the lot to the other side of the back of the lot, you know, that has nothing to do with what is really, should be focused on the frontage in the front of the lot where the business is actually taking place.
Was that the driveway? Is it the doorway?
It's
Is
the
it
closest point from in the frontage of the lot, on the street frontage.
to the frontage of the other
closest
lot.
other frontage point
Okay,
on the other one.
fine, and you're keeping the 1,000 feet, or you're picking a different number?
Well,
I'd rather not change the number. I'd rather have a mechanism whereby, based upon the selectmen's review of the situation, either decide to make an exception or not based upon the available information. Stay with the intent of the,
I think that's a thing. It's
Cindy.
Cindy,
So, Rich, why don't you ask that again?
okay, so all I was saying was I'd rather have the bylaw give the Board of Selectmen the ability to grant variances from it, or whatever you call it. I don't know what the right word to use is, but
exceptions.
whatever exceptions based upon the information available.
We can grant waivers too. But I think you need to focus on a couple of things. I think the ability to waive requirements is always possible, but it's dangerous, because then you run risk of selective
Okay.
enforcement.
You're right.
I think there were two legitimate different ways of calculating the distance. I think both ways are valid. You come up with a different way if you want, but I think you should really sit down and think it through and figure out what is the most representative way to measure it for this type of a calculation. You're trying to figure out how far from something you're going to allow another use. And then the other thing is, how many feet do you want to make it?
Right. Well, I think,
That's how I see it going down. So to answer your question, I know that's not as direct as you'd like me to.
No, that's fine. No, you answered the question.
I do think that waivers, although you can do it,
Not a good idea. I got it.
I'm concerned that the
dangerous.
1,000 feet is an arbitrary number. It'd be a lot easier for us to know what to do if we knew what the decision-making process was that decided 1,000 feet.
that's going back time.
Right. I mean, should it be 2,000? I mean, because if it's a question of limiting a certain type of business in a certain area, I mean, isn't there a way that we can limit the number of licenses?
Well, I think we all agree on the way we're measuring the radius, right?
I'm okay with measuring it by the frontage.
Right, because I really think that's the intent, is, you know, being on the road.
Yes, and having the density not exceed any certain amount.
Because you get properties that jut into the back.
That's
and
right.
then,
That's
you
the
know,
issue.
It could be way over here, but then it goes this way, and it's too close.
Right,
You know, it
100%.
doesn't- So, that I
minutes.
think we agree on. 3 minutes, okay.
No pressure.
But what do we do on the number? Well, do we have to decide that right now?
No. We're leaving it on here anyway, right? But for this.
Yeah, let's
for the-
leave it on and decide some other time.
For the purpose of deciding we should probably take a survey
Well,
of
we need a little research.
other towns and see.
Okay, next.
Okay. This
This
is,
is an easy one,
Which one?
go ahead.
31. There's just language that was left that should have been removed regarding adult entertainment.
Oh, based upon the legal decision by the court?
Yep,
Okay,
and
yeah.
it's still in our book, and it shouldn't be.
Got it, yep.
32 is
Next
the police station
Police
easement.
station easement, good.
33, there was some language missing or conflicting information on the deed and the acceptance, like we have to revote it to make sure the language matches.
For Strawberry Lane.
Strawberry
Okay,
Lane.
good enough.
34 is funding for a historic preservation plan. And 35 is for a scanner, it's for historical. And then we have 36 now, which is the vote to extend the moratorium, and 37, which would be to prohibit entirely.
Okay, both 34 and 35 were from CPA funds, right?
Yes,
Yep.
that's what we have so far. Am I missing anything? Well, am I missing one from earlier
Oh, I hope
today
you're not
for
missing anything.
Gail?
That's a lot of things.
Oh, that's on here, good. Okay,
I can get a question.
perfect.
Okay,
I
Go ahead.
agree, I need to stop.
Did we? Oh, Price. I didn't want to see that guy.
Oh, he's horrible.
He holds like a cheap suit.
Oh, he's horrible.
okay, here we are, back to this open meeting. One thing we got to finalize quickly was the warrant. So,
We'll do that
Okay.
first.
there's,
So we had a couple of articles that we had skipped over earlier in the meeting. The first one is Article 15, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate money for shared services, shared fire services.
Take it
So
off.
well, hold on, what does that actually mean, though?
So this article was intended to be the amount of money that we needed to pay to the town of Uxbridge in order to engage in a contract for shared fire services. Depending on what the board decides to do tonight, that proposal, the way that it's structured, would no longer make sense because the town would not be paying Uxbridge a certain sum of money. Uxbridge might be paying the town of Mendon a certain sum of money. So my recommendation would be that we table this until the annual town meeting so that we have time to decide and figure out how the new restructuring would be with the
I think it's an
town.
annual town meeting topic anyway,
Yes.
so I'm fine with that.
Okay?
thank you. Is that it?
And then 22 and a half was the staffer fire grant.
Safer?
Safer staffer fire grant, which
I think we
we
I
should,
thought we decided on that already.
we did.
Yeah.
You said no.
Oh, well, perfect
we?
then. I think we should wait on it anyway.
Yeah, I thought we did.
Okay, then those are the only two, so I need a motion on the warrant.
Did we say no to that?
We said no to that.
Okay.
Not because we're saying no to the grant, but just, we don't have, we don't have it yet, we're not gonna set aside the money, just like the other
No,
ones.
no, no, this is the third one about the personnel,
Personnel grant.
which you said that we should look at, if it's a possibility.
Wait a
Should we
minute,
put it on here? 'Cause
Yeah,
I
but
thought we were
what
gonna
would
put-
go on? If we were to pursue it, we'd have no money to expend. If we want it, right?
That's
Because we
true.
could-
Why does it
there's-
need to
there's
go
nothing-
on?
nothing to
Why
put
does it
on.
need to go on here?
I don't know.
Yeah,
You just need the authorization to go forward.
Oh, well, that's
But that we
that's
can do.
us. Yeah.
that's us, yeah.
Right.
As we go forward, if we give them the grant, then it's up to you folks to say yes.
Yeah, 100%.
You let us say that we can go forward.
So it doesn't need to be.
Okay,
No article.
that's it then,
Do
right?
you agree?
That's it. So you need to
Motion
make a motion on
to-
the warrant.
Okay. I move to, actually, what, are we moving to finalize the warrant already?
Sign it.
Yeah, this is it. So you're not going to see it again in this form. So you would approve it tonight pending town council review. This is the last day. This is this, and you'll sign it once those revisions have been made. But this is the end, and then there'll be a meeting with FinCom
Okay, so I'm
about
gonna
funding.
move slightly different, okay? Laura, I'm gonna say, I move to sign the 11/27/18 STM warrant as amended in this meeting tonight. Right? Pending town council approval.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So,
And
last but not least,
last, but certainly not least,
All right, I move, where is it now?
16.
16. Heck did it go?
We're tabling 17,
Yeah.
so you can do that.
Oh, I'm,
There it
16.
is, I got it. I move to appoint William Kessler to the position of fire chief.
Second,
Wait a minute.
pending.
Pending,
Pending.
Oh, pending successful negotiations.
yes.
Second.
Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I saw one more thing on here, that's what's
everyone.
throwing me off.
I thought
Tell me
went somewhere else and you were
about-
No, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about,
Gonna push him towards the door.
thinking about Red Sox, I don't know. No, I saw one more thing here. This
So
is
you
all
know.
throwing me off.
did better
I'm
without
gonna give him his 14 days and say, thank you very much, but it's time.
I don't know where yours went. I think Mark took it.
Vamoose.
but-
No,
Okay.
it's his mark on it. It's his
I
mark.
swear to God, I.
Oh, don't even worry about it.
Nope.
You don't want to get a
Oh,
picture?
can you guys sign
I
up?
just gotta be quick.
Oh,
Go for it.
We're all right here now, so.
Hey, might as well. Everybody's dressed
William,
up.
picture.
Rich wore his best striped shirt. We're all dressed up.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, move the chairs all the way.
Bill, we're gonna take a quick picture.
Chris?
I wanna beat feet, so let's go. Sure.